Okay, it's 7 o'clock. I'm going to call the Village of New Glarus Board meeting to order. We'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please have all cell phones silenced during the meeting. Item 4, announcement. The village board will convene in a closed session under state statute 1985 1F, considering financial, medical, social, and personal histories or disciplinary data of specific persons. Preliminary consideration of specific personal problems or the investigation of charges against specific persons except where Part B applies, which if discussed in public would be likely to have substantial adverse effect upon the reputation of any person referred to in such histories or data or involved in such problems or investigations. Review of anonymous complaint against law enforcement employee. Item 5, I look for approval of the agenda.
I would just ask before we approve to take number 9 out for tonight. That Linda Highland called and requested that be postponed until the next meeting to introduce our new library director. And I thought that would be fine, so I hope you all agree. I didn't want to do that. So we will ask for that to be better. Yeah, I know. We kind of know, but
You better.
postpone that until next time. And with
Everyone
that,
okay
I
with
would
that?
approve the meeting,
Everyone okay with that?
and I would move approval.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 6, public appearances and citizens' comments. No debate will occur with the board on items introduced by citizens. Items will not be acted upon at this meeting, but will be referred to the proper staff or committee if action is required. And please keep your comments to 3 minutes.
I
Anyone?
think I'll go first.
Okay.
Yeah. I have a written copy that I'll share with you afterwards. Thanks for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Denise Antone Wright, and my family and I have lived in New Glarus since 2004. During that time, I've served as the director of the New Glarus Public Library, have been a board member for the New Glarus Historical Society, served on this village board, and have been an active volunteer in our community. I'm speaking tonight not because of anything related to New Glarus's room tax. I'm only speaking because after reading the minutes from the January 15th village board meeting, I'm worried that the chalet of the Golden Fleece Museum is once again becoming a vulnerable target. My first experience with the chalet was in 2006 when Pete Etter gave my family and our out-of-town guests a tour. I was entranced with the building and collections, but even more so with the story of Edwin Barlow and his dedication to preserving and interpreting New Glarus's Swiss heritage. At that point in 2006, there were concerns from the village board about the future of the chalet and its cost to the village. Through the efforts of Pete Etter, Katie Elmer, and Shirley Lushow, along with the assistance of the New Glarus Chamber of Commerce, bus tours of the chalet continued to be offered, and smaller tours could be arranged ahead of time. I became a volunteer tour guide in 2006, and for several years, with Pete's leadership, we offered not only bus tours, but had the chalet open on select Saturdays during the summer. Many thanks to Julie, Jamie, and Jenna LeGros, Joanne Cruz, and Alice Wurgler-Morehouse for becoming volunteer tour guides during this time. In 2011, there were again concerns from the village board about the cost of running the chalet. On August 11th, 2011, I wrote a letter to the village board and members of the Parks and Rec Committee outlining 7 things that I felt needed to be accomplished in order to make the chalet more self-reliant. Number 1, support from the village. I stressed the importance of the village board, village administrator, and village staff being 100% behind the chalet of the Golden Fleece. In my opinion, nothing else is possible without this complete support. Paid staffing, number 2. I stress the importance of having a paid coordinator for the chalet. I suggested that this coordinator could be a part-time position. Number 3, utilizing volunteers. I stress that having a paid coordinator in place would make it easier to recruit and train and schedule volunteer tour guides. Number 4, National Register of Historic Places status. I stress the importance of getting the chalet on the National Register in order to secure funding opportunities. Number 5, grant opportunities. I stress the importance of applying for grants that could pay for much-needed maintenance of the chalet and preservation of its contents. Number 6, preservation. I stress the need for modern preservation techniques to be used with the chalet's collection. Promotion and publicity, number 7. I stress the important role that a paid coordinator would play in promoting the chalet to new and emerging markets. As I look back on my suggestions, I am so very pleased with all the many, many positive changes that have taken place for the chalet since 2011. And I stress that I had very little to do with any of those accomplishments. The chalet now has a part-time paid coordinator, an active Friends of the Chalet group, and successfully uses volunteer tour guides. The chalet is open every Saturday from Memorial Day weekend through the end of October, and on festival weekends, the chalet is also open on Sundays. The chalet gained National Register status in 2015. The chalet has applied for and received several grants from the New Glarus Community Foundation that have allowed for necessary upgrades to the building and important preservation of its artifacts. The chalet continues to promote itself to new markets. For example, it has an active Facebook following, and last October, the Friends of the Chalet held its first ever Mr. Barlow's Wine Walk, which was a huge success. As a tour guide for the chalet, I've seen scores of visitors fall in love with the museum, and as a result, with the culture and history of New Glarus. The Chalet of the Golden Fleece is currently in the best shape that I've seen during my 12+ years of being a volunteer tour guide. If you don't know Mr. Barlow's story, please ask. If you've not toured the chalet, please do. If you want to have a full discussion about the future of the museum, then please have all the facts and figures present, along with the key stakeholders. I have no doubt that the Chalet of the Golden Fleece, the best is yet to come. Thanks. Here's copies of my letter. Thank you.
Sandy?
Okay, so I'm Sandy Bloom, also here on behalf of the Chalet of the Golden Fleece, and I do want to focus most of my comments on that. I will say I think the room tax issue is complicated, and we do need to do more research and understand better what we can and cannot do with that money. But I too am concerned about the comments made at the recent board meetings regarding the chalet. Mr. Trotman spoke about the cost incurred by the village to the museum, and it is true the chalet is running in the red now and for some time now, but the numbers reported in the village board meeting seemed pretty bad. When you divide those by the combined number of years, we're talking about less than $7,000 a year to maintain a museum. Putting that comment with some context as to the other costs incurred under the Parks and Rec Department would have been appreciated. And please make no mistake, the Friends are full supporters of all the things that make a village a nice place to live, like museums and libraries and swimming pools. But certainly, we are not the only entity under the Parks and Rec that are not making money. Further, we've been approving attendance every year for the past 6 years. They are small gains to be sure, but we have trended up every year. No mention has been made publicly that the Friends have secured over $18,000 in grant monies used to maintain and upgrade the building. The museum was so neglected when we took over that black mold was growing on the walls in the basement, and several items in the collection were completely engulfed in mold and cobwebs. What other village properties have been left to deteriorate like that? 40 years of neglect cannot be undone with 5 or 6 years of volunteerism. Let's make sure we all understand that if we lose the physical structure, we lose the predominantly Swiss collection and all the information we as guides impart about the Swiss collection and the Swiss heritage here. We have made repeated attempts to meet with the full village board to come up with long-term plans for the museum. It is also not uncommon for entities dealing with arts and cultural activities to need public support. The Overture Center in Madison was recently supported by room tax revenues. In that regard, the Chalet is no different. At one time, the Chalet was making the village money, which went into a general fund. That was a short-sighted decision by village board members at that time, but we cannot undo the past. But records housed at the museum show as many as 30,000 visitors in 1 year. Back then, the Chalet was open 7 days a week, 8 hours a day. How many local businesses would be successful with no advertising budget, run mostly by volunteers, and only open 5 hours a week from June to October? It's a pretty hard way to make a buck. Comments from the State Historical Society letter requesting inventory documentation I felt were somewhat out of context. They read that the Society is particularly appreciative of the efforts by the Friends of the Chalet Volunteer Group. Historic house museums often struggle to maintain standards and overall viability. And this is the key sentence I think that should have been stated. The village and the Friends of the Chalet can be immensely proud of your success in this joint endeavor. And I think lastly, we all enjoyed the recent airing of the Around the Corner program featuring New Glarus. They did a great job highlighting New Glarus. And at the end, when they asked Mr. Trutman what makes New Glarus a great place to live, work, and play, the response included parks, our Swiss heritage, and our museum. And I am just challenging the board, what are we going to do to protect those things? Thank you. And we have copies as well.
Anyone else wish to speak? Public comment? Okay, moving on to item 7, approval of the consent agenda. Okay,
Second.
any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Item 8, Finance and Personnel Committee. Item 8, discussion, consideration, resolution 1903, appointing Officer Lang. We need a motion. Huh? First, you want to introduce Mr. Lang, please?
I'd like to introduce our latest hire to the New Glarus Police Department, Logan Lang. He comes from the Beloit Police Department, where he worked for a short time there and wanted to get back into small town, community-type policing action, so he left the Beloit Police Department to come here. Prior to that, he worked for numerous years in the Albany Police Department. Local, growing up in the area, grew up in the area, and really liked the area and wanted to get back to small town America and his idea of community policing. So with that, I'd like to introduce to the village board Logan Lang. The clerk over there, Lynn Herb, is going to swear you in just a second. Logan's family's here tonight to watch him get sworn in, and we'll let you guys take it from there. When Lynn gets done, then I'll present him with his badge and let Dan, Officer Kurth, take some pictures of us with the flag in the background.
And I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 1903.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You want to raise your right hand? I, Logan M. Lang,
I, Logan M. Lang,
who has been appointed to the office of full-time police officer
who has been appointed to the office of full-time police officer
in and for the village of New Glarus,
in and for the village of New Glarus,
in Greene County,
in Greene County,
swears that I will support the Constitution of the United States
swears that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully discharge the duties of said office
and will faithfully discharge the duties of said office
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
I'm going to sign right there.
All right.
Thank you.
Would you step over here, Logan? Congratulations. See you tomorrow at 8 o'clock.
Actually, got really good. All right.
All right.
Snow or
We're good. All right, thanks, Chief. Appreciate it.
See you again soon.
Sounds good.
It's a pleasure meeting you. Mr. and Mrs., a pleasure meeting you.
like that. See you tomorrow at 8 a.m.
Guys, drive safe.
Thank you.
Good night.
No problem.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Thanks.
Those sides again.
Okay, thank you.
Take care,
Thanks,
guys.
Dan.
Item B, discussion and consideration, extension of contract with Military Waste System to 10 years. When they first came and talked to us, they offered this 10-year extension. And Lynn ran some figures, and I think we're gonna end up saving money by doing this, correct?
Yeah, my preliminary estimates were just from 19 to 22, for those number of years, we'd save $36,545. It's a lower per household rate for both recycling and garbage if we go with the 10-year contract.
And we
We
only
gave it a year
waited
to
right,
see
to
how-
try them out and make sure it was gonna work and all that.
How much does the spring cleanup thing affect?
That was the only other thing that they wanted to change as part of this contract, and that was the biggest reason for me running those numbers, because I was like, well, then are we really gonna save or not? Right now, the contract and Waste Management, it was 1,500 lump sum for the annual cleanup. So that's what Pelletieri had done for the first year as well. They said that it was way more stuff out there than they anticipated, so 1,500 was not going to cut it, yeah. So they wanted to go with $140 an hour. And they thought it would probably double, it would probably be double the 1,500. But even with that,
Yeah,
So it's-
that's
Even with that, that's
not
minimal.
outrageous.
Yeah.
yeah, it's not,
Compared
it's
to
still
what-
saving on the
Yeah.
other end.
Still small.
And we have to, wasn't it part of the initial contract that we have to do this within,
Yeah.
we have to get this approved within a certain amount of time
We couldn't wait
in
5
order to
years.
lock
Yeah.
the new rate in?
Yeah, I was thinking.
Well, and
2
obviously we
years,
save
wasn't it?
money every year.
It was 2
Right,
years.
and then the sooner we get it
Number
locked
2,
in,
It's been about a year and a
the
half.
sooner we get the new rate.
I will say this, they are such an improvement over what we had. I just can't,
Yeah. They even came in that snowstorm last week. On Monday.
seriously.
Yeah.
In my neighborhood, I will tell you that the amount of garbage that gets like left or, like
Blown away.
blown away or dumped out is much better
Seems much
than it
less.
had been
Yeah.
prior to switching. I think also the,
And that helps that we've been,
yes, that I think is also an improvement.
yeah.
The bins are better.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
So
so,
the
We recommended that.
escalator, pricing escalator, that's only for special events.
Yeah, and we
Special
currently
services.
don't have any, we're currently not using any of those services right now.
Okay, but there's no escalator within the 10-year contract?
No, you can see it's just, well, there is, but it's,
Well, it's,
Yeah.
but it's built into the
right,
contract.
right,
We're
yeah.
voting
They
out any
set
fee
it
that-
out, right, yeah. And we also got rid of, we had done that letter of credit at the very beginning till we could make sure that they were gonna do the job that they said they were gonna do. And that's, before Brian left, we had discontinued that like months before. So that's saving us a little bit as well.
Like when you ask about like special events, do they handle festival? Does all of that get contracted through chamber? They have to handle all of those
And
things,
they can use.
and they can use whoever they want,
Currently, that's the way it's being done.
even if they use the village park or if they use.
Yeah, we work with them on emptying the containers and some of that stuff. It's different each time, but
Okay.
yeah. But basically they, in that special events permit application, there's a piece on there that says where the garbage dumpster's gonna be and that kind of thing.
But then they handle their own contract with
So,
the waste
yeah.
disposal.
And they're somehow responsible, the event sponsor is
Yes.
somehow responsible for, I mean, if it doesn't get done, is there a procedure for dunning them? If we have to have our own,
We do charge that if our guys have to come out, get called in to do something like that for them, then we'll bill them quoted wage rate for the hours that our guys.
They get
put in.
charged labor.
Typically, the chamber uses a lot of volunteer groups to pick up the trash, like the swim team, and they make
Yeah.
donations to them.
I was
Baseball
wondering
team.
though, like, you know, like last year when, what's the one that was over here? Like Blues and,
Or the Blues
Jazz.
Festival?
yeah, and they like, I was down here or something when they were setting up, and I don't think it was, Pelletier or somebody came in and they brought in dumpsters. And I was just wondering, you know, like, they don't coordinate that through us along with the waste management company, right? They do that on their own
Yes, right.
to bring those extra, you know what I mean? Like, they brought them in,
Mhm.
set them right there in the village park, you know, like at the,
Just like they do Porta Johns. and
Right,
everything else.
okay,
They're
yeah.
responsible for that.
So are you wondering
I just wanna
if
make,
there was a problem with a non-contracted?
I think he wants to make
Vendors.
sure.
I just
we're
wanna
not
make
paying
sure,
them.
well, I just wanna, well, and
I mean, that's
I
why.
still have questions about that, I think that's
Okay.
outside of this issue, but that,
All
I
right.
have questions with that, along with that whole permitting process.
Okay.
We haven't had anything extra with Pelletier.
Okay, yeah, okay, good. Then I've been happy with them. I think people overall have been happy with the pickup,
Mhm.
and I like the idea of saving another 30-some thousand.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
So I will make a motion that we approve the extension of contract with Pelletier Waste Systems to 10 years.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item C, discussion, consideration, resolution 1901, reserve debt policy. This is due annually, correct me?
Correct, it's annual, it's on page 15. The debt service capacity calculation is on page 14, but it's the separate account that we maintain for emergency reserve and working capital. And based on the auditor's recommendation, we do 10% of, for the emergency reserve fund, we do 10% of the general fund operating expenses for the budgeted year. And for working capital, it's 15%. So every year, we redo it based on the newest budget numbers. And then there will need to be a little extra money added to that account at the bank, but not bad. And debt service is looking pretty good at this
Yeah.
point in time.
A lot better than a lot of places.
Move approval of resolution 1901.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Which is probably a good thing with some big ticket items.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, skipping number 9, going to number 10, ad hoc facilities committee discussion, consideration, award proposal for village hall needs assessment study. And the ad hoc committee recommended through DCI, architectural design consultants. Huh?
Dimension.
Well, I'm on, oh, you've done all of these? That-
They're all in there.
They're all
I'm
there,
sorry,
so they
I'm
can
sorry, I'm
compare.
sorry,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And
Okay,
then-
I'm, okay. Correction.
Mention for the cost is $9,690.
Right.
Just on the right page here, where,
Dimension 4 is on 30, Chuck.
Yeah.
It's
There you
30.
go. They seem to really understand what we needed. They already had some of the information and they were the best. We're familiar with them and they were the best offer, so it was
Yeah.
easy. And, oh yeah, okay, so they're gonna do the
Compared to the
Study?
ADCI though, all of the others were much less, I mean, ADCI's was much more thorough than,
Well, I think yours was assuming we were doing things that we weren't asking them to
ask
do.
them, yeah, they went way over the top on what they put in there.
so is that why their,
It's just a lot of words.
is that why their proposal was more?
I would guess.
Probably.
out of curiosity, what is our most current needs assessment on this
2004, I think it was, yeah, Plunkett Research.
Long time ago.
Long time ago, that's
Yeah.
why we
Yeah,
figured we just had
as
to
a
do
group,
it.
we decided we just have to do this and put this to bed, one way or the other, you know, it has to be done.
And they're gonna give us all the answers we need. And help us, well,
Hopefully.
everything we need. And really guide the
Yeah.
process, which I like.
Yeah.
You know, we don't have to pull it together, they're gonna do that. You know, pull in all the people and. So I would move approval of contract.
Second.
All in favor, say, any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Oh. Item 11, new board business, discussion consideration, resolution 1902, preliminary resolution for special assessments for Third Avenue, 2019 street project.
This is on page 36, and basically the only thing this does is says, yes, we're going to do a project and we want to special assess. We're going to tell you how we're going to special assess, and we're going to have a public hearing on it. This gets the ball rolling for scheduling the public hearing, getting the engineering report back to us. The public hearing is going to be scheduled for March 13th at the Public Works Public Safety meeting. So it'll be at the beginning of that meeting. We'll notice it, send out to all the property owners, and put it in the
Like
paper.
next Wednesday?
The March 13th.
Oh, March.
Yeah. Yeah. Takes a little time to get it all sent out.
I just want to clarify this for the record. I talked to Lynn about this today. The paragraph, first paragraph, now therefore is hereby resolved, includes special assessments against properties benefited by the improvements, yada, 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 including sanitary sewer, storm sewer, water main, street asphalt, which, you know, at first glance makes it look like these people are gonna be paying for this, which, the last paragraph, the proportion of the costs, concrete, curb and gutter removals, concrete sidewalk, et cetera, to be assessed against the properties, 100%. So, I just want to clarify that these people are paying for curb and gutter and sidewalks.
Yeah, they just benefit from the improvement in the
Right.
road, is what that
Right.
says.
But one could
Yes.
easily
Misinterpret.
misconstrue this.
Yeah.
And that came up at that, you were there too, Chuck. At that,
Not the
mhm.
big meeting.
I can't remember, but somebody who lived over there asked, because somebody started to get a little hot,
Yeah.
on, am I paying for every foot of every part of
Yeah. But they're not.
of the construction? And it was no, and you're not even necessarily paying for sidewalk or sidewalk removal, because it's only if it has to be replaced.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
And
So curb and gutter though is.
curb and gutter and curb and gutter removal are for sure.
right.
And, but I think that you're right,
Well, I'm
that
assuming
stressing,
It's
There's
good
no
to
one there
clarify.
from Third Avenue that this is the situation. I just wanted to clarify.
but right,
For
you
the
know,
record.
when so, I've seen a sheet like this before though, when another project was done and the amount is,
Yeah, and we'll actually, once we approve this, that gives Pat the authority to do the next step, which is to prepare his engineering report, his preliminary engineering
Okay.
report. That will include a list that has an estimate for each of those property
Okay.
owners. That will be in our office, and the notice that we send to them says that it will be in our office. So if they want to come and look what we think it may be, they're welcome to do that.
too, when we have a public hearing, if
If
you
all
would
that
like to
information will be there.
consider about that, I mean, they could emphasize it at that night, that it's gonna only be, you know, so they understand too.
Right.
No, I just wanted to clarify, because my phone starts ringing tomorrow morning. Hell, you mean that?
Can we make sure that Chuck's number is
Yeah.
on,
Yeah, his number on it.
on the public hearing letter?
I'll give you that number.
Let's put that,
I'll leave it with you.
because there's now a spot on the Public Works and Public Safety Committee, so I think what I'm hearing from Chuck is that he can fill that for you, Roger. He can sit with Peggy and I on that committee now.
But, things that, this is all pretty standard, language and based on code, I will move approval of resolution, 1902.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. President's report. Item A, update administrator hiring process. Well, we met with PAA yesterday, they came with, they had 28 applicants.
Wow.
It's the
And-
second largest that they've ever
Yeah.
had.
And they pretty much categorized them, who they thought would be a good fit, and then mediocre, and then the ones that absolutely didn't have any qualification. So we ended up selecting 10, and they're gonna notify those 10, and they are to make a video that we will look at on the 15th, week from Friday. And then from those 10, we're gonna get it down to 4, maybe 5, we kind of like to keep it at 4, that's what they recommended. So on the 1st and 2nd of March, the 1st of March, it's a Friday night, we'll have a get-together at the conference room at the Chalet Land House at 6 o'clock, then?
Yeah,
think,
I
is
gotta,
that what it is?
I gotta book that, make sure
Okay.
that they're available, but, yeah.
And then, we're gonna have somebody give them a tour of the town. They gotta do a writing exercise and a tour of the town. I think we're gonna do that on Saturday. right? Friday afternoon.
Those things will happen.
And then, Saturday morning here, we'll start doing the interviews. So we'll need the full board here on Saturday morning. So, second of March.
March 1st is the social event where we then, actually, it's really pretty nice.
Meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but we get tables that we sit at, and then they actually come around to each table. So it's not up to us to try to find them. They come and we chat with each. They
Yeah.
bring spouses or significant others or whatever, and we do as well.
Yeah, it was a nice process.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's the same.
Yeah.
We're gonna do that the same way.
So interviews that morning.
Yeah.
And then Saturday morning.
And then hopefully on Saturday,
We have a
we-
time, do we wanna say it?
No, we didn't.
we didn't, you mean for Saturday?
Yeah.
To start.
9 o'clock?
I thought they might recommend, maybe it depends on if we have 4 or 5 and how we space them.
Yeah.
And we
We'll
had
have-
donuts and coffee.
We'll probably have a recommend, we could probably do that on the 15th, but
Yeah.
we,
I was hoping
know how many.
You tell them what brings me to a
we'll
meeting.
settle on that.
Swiss? Are you Swiss?
Yeah. A lot.
Our sweets in the morning.
does anyone have any questions on the hiring process? Yeah, I think we got it.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of good
Yeah.
candidates.
Now that we're on it, so from there, what would you look,
Well, on Saturday then, when we interview everybody, hopefully, when we're done interviewing everybody, you'll be able to choose a candidate. And then they will, at that time, on Monday right away, make them an offer. They may counter, we don't know, but, and
Attorney will help to finalize the contract.
yes,
and
our attorney
negotiate.
has to look the contract over.
He'll be the key there.
But, and he said, we don't know how soon this could happen. I mean, some places require, like, we required Brian to get 30 days notice, and he said some are 60 and some are 90.
Mm.
So,
so worst case scenario,
yeah,
Yeah, very much worse, but 90 is very rare.
yeah. Yeah,
I would
that's
think
right.
So
Yeah.
we would then bring that to board meeting for approval of a contract, that very
On the fifth
Tuesday,
again.
pending the background check. So we could approve it and then complete the background check, which takes a little while. But,
And that Saturday morning process is orchestrated
It's
by,
outlined.
by
Yeah.
what's their names?
They'll give us
PA,
questions
whatever their name
to
is.
ask the candidates.
we will choose our questions, they'll be all ready, so.
Yeah.
It's a good process.
Mhm.
I think we all felt really good when we got done with it. When we heard Brian, it was pretty.
You should have.
They did a lot for us to get it all lined up, yeah.
Okay. Any more discussion on that item? Moving on to appointment of trustee to fulfill unexpired term of Sean Dow. I am gonna make a motion to table this for now, because it was brought to my attention that we haven't formally, as a board, accepted his resignation.
We don't have to. It's done when he submits it.
This is what you told me on the phone
No, I
Friday.
didn't even mention that on the phone. I said I hadn't seen it. But what I did say on the phone was that I thought we should put a procedure in place. And fortunately, I have a question for our attorney. Rather than these things coming up sporadically, or not so sporadically, and we don't have a procedure in place for filling vacancies. There are state statutes, which I'm sure you're all aware of, and in the case of replacing Sean due to the time of his resignation, the timing of his resignation, it certainly seems obvious, at least to me, that appointing rather than elections or special elections would be the way to go. But we don't have any process, and the statutes don't have any process for appointing someone. So when I saw this on the agenda, I thought this is maybe too much of a knee-jerk reaction to putting someone in place. And it might, I think it would definitely behoove us to have a procedure whereby we, publish. How you do that anymore, I don't know. Facebook is not official, that's where everybody gets their
Information.
whatever they get. We don't have a real newspaper that reports these things, but somehow that we could find a way to put the word out that there is a vacancy and interested parties should apply with their bona fides, and we can consider it. After all, we all, and coming up in April, probably more, well, we've all had to go through the process of filing papers, interviews, stating our case for why we think we should be on the board, et cetera, and our opinions on what's important. And I think at the very least, the potential appointee should have to go through some form of
Well,
vetting
it would be helpful for
like this.
the chairman also.
Well, it's helpful for
Nice
everybody.
for Roger
I mean,
to-
it's not, the president can appoint, but we still have to approve. And this way, we have a process in place. I have a question, if we were to put a process in place, stating a specific means of appointing a board member to fill a vacancy do you think that would be done by ordinance or resolution or?
I would normally expect to see it as part of the resolution, or excuse me, as part of the ordinances. And I have seen some municipalities around the state do have a policy in place that talks to, if a vacancy occurs more than 6 months away from a particular election, they will hold a special, they go to that level of detail. Others will talk of putting a notice advertisement in the local paper of the vacancy and solicit interest that way. I would say that it's probably the minority that have a process in place. And to be frank, most of municipalities have difficulty finding people that are interested. And it's through word of mouth, it's through connections within the existing board members, trustees, what have you, that they find an interested party to do that. But absolutely, I think that can be done, it has been done. It's not unusual to have a more formalistic response for the very reasons that you've enunciated here. It gives the board an opportunity to know who their options are. And as Lynn has heard me say when we've had vacancies, you don't look internally necessarily, cast as wide a net, because you don't know who's around the corner that just simply wasn't aware of the potential.
Well, I think.
Prevents the look of favoritism. Then somebody can't say, they didn't know when you
Right,
just picked.
exactly.
I think,
Is
you know,
is
this.
your motion still?
Yeah, we have not a second on my table in motion.
Oh, okay.
I don't care.
I don't know, it's this is for 2 months, and we aren't gonna have something in place.
Well, this is
for-
for-
the
it opens
position,
for
this was to be
14
for
months.
14 months.
Oh, they would go on the ballot?
No.
No.
Oh.
Well, because he's
That's part of the-
filling, whoever would, this part would be
Fill out
filling
his-
Sean's
Until
term.
2020.
I only jumped in without a second because Roger said what he said. He said what we said.
As he said, he's.
But this whole procedure would also include the state statute, which defines when you might leave this to an election. So had Sean resigned in December, we could have done this in April, I believe. And he didn't, so it has to go until next April, or else a special election in November in the nonpartisan, and that's, and there is going to be one, and that's costly, and it would only be for 5 months. So, but this whole thing should be part of what I think we should have an ordinance for, if that's what we do. In the case that we appoint, this is how we do it. In the
For
case
the
that
next time it happens.
someone, yeah, because it's gonna happen. And come April, we're gonna be probably looking for someone to fill vacancies.
Yeah,
We
so,
could potentially be looking for two.
Two, possibly. So, yeah, two, so we're now down to 3, so, I think we should, I don't know how you wanna, if you, or even if you do.
So are you suggesting on this one we even delay until we have a formal
Yes.
ordinance in
Yes.
place?
Yes, yes.
Or that we follow a procedure that you think would be similar to whatever our ordinance would be? You know what I'm saying? Like, say, if you have an idea of what our ordinance should say, like that the policy would be that it be posted on our website in some form of social media, an announcement made in the local newspaper or something, and for such a period of time that we accept applications, the board, or something like that, that if we have a procedure
I'm saying we should put the procedure in place first.
before we make
I
an
don't,
appointment.
I don't see urgency, and I think we could have this in place in, yeah, a couple of meetings, hopefully. I don't know how long, how long does it take for publication, et cetera, of ordinances for them to become official, but at least, but like I say, I don't think we have a urgency,
I guess first we
there's
have to know
no,
what exactly you want the ordinance to be, I mean, what you want.
yeah,
that
I mean, we
policy
have to,
be.
well, we have to decide that as a board, I think.
Yeah.
I would be happy to work on this somehow with,
Just policies like.
any
this.
ideas that people want to give, and then our attorney could figure it out.
Bill, have you got any ideas how you word something like that?
Yeah, as I said, it's been done. I mean, we could, I can look at other similar resolutions and ordinances that are in place and draft one with a couple of options and get that to
Yeah.
Liz so that she has something to work from, and you, the board, has something to consider. We can have that before your next meeting.
Okay.
That would be nice.
Do.
Then we can hash it over and
Do ordinances or laws here or in the state already exist for what may happen in the, for us here in New Glarus in April?
Yeah.
For,
We'll look at what I just said.
but I mean, like,
With the vacancies, you mean, if we end up with,
There would be vacancies, so if we don't have enough people elected to serve those positions.
Or do they-
that would be vacant, and then.
even if there are write-ins,
Oh,
If there's
If
write-ins.
there's write-ins, they'll take the seat.
they automatically get the seat?
Yeah,
would
if
take
they
the
want
seat,
it,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, I suppose it's not unheard of that someone writes someone else's name and they have no desire for the seat and they decline it, and you have a vacancy. But if there is a vacancy, you'd be going through the same process that you are now, either hold special election or the majority vote of the
Village board.
village
Okay.
board appoints.
Okay. That's
so let me clarify something, Bill. If, say I write in Jane Phillipson, even though she hasn't taken out nomination papers, if she got a vote, she could.
She could.
So then what's the object of, like, we did have a candidate take out nomination papers to run as a write-in.
Then they officially can campaign.
Registered as
Ah.
a write-in candidate.
Okay.
they can
And
handle
elected,
leaflets or.
I see.
election officials working that day can say, this person is running as a write-in.
I see, okay.
That is correct.
It's official.
It gives them certain rights that they would not otherwise have.
Okay,
They can raise money, they can put their name in the paper.
okay,
they can-
okay.
Yeah, it's sort of a nasty situation. I mean,
it is.
somebody
That's
lays
why I
in weeds.
asked, that was more why I was
Somebody lays in
asking that
weeds and
for,
says, "Oh, well,
the fact that
three vacancies."
this situation's gonna happen maybe 3 times here in the next.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's gonna be thanks to you.
Well, if you can get something to Lynn, Bill,
Yes.
give us some.
Anything I can do to
That's
help,
a- yeah.
anything I can do.
I don't, did you second that? Or-
Nobody has
I
your,
second Ryder's motion.
all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, item C, appointment of Historical Preservation Commission, and I'm sorry, I can't remember the person's
I'm
name.
not sure.
I can't.
Tim Usher, yeah, I'm sorry.
It's filling the unexpired term of Harold Keys.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's been on, sir,
he's a
as
good
long as
member.
I've been,
He was a good
Well,
member.
Yeah.
quite a while.
I would move, I would.
I'll
move
second.
Tim Usher.
Okay, any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we need a motion to go into closed session.
Once we go into closed session.
Second.
Roll call.
Roll call. Barb?
Yes.
Anthony?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
Petra?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes. Okay,
Yes.
Okay, thank